What's up, everybody? This is Chris Sorrell bringing another edition of the Car Concierge Show, the show that helps with the buying, selling, maintaining, and repairing of your vehicles. On today's show, we're going to head out to Texas and check out a sports car that was cut in half. After that, we're going to head over to the government situation where they're still investigating Volkswagen's Dieselgate and finding multiple vehicles that have the same situation. And last but not least, we're going to check out General Motors and its Robotaxi situation after the accident or death last year. Let's jump right in. First off, we're going to head over to Texas and see a situation where a McLaren was cut in half. Let's check it out.
Two people are dead after a car crash that left one car cut in half this afternoon, according to Dallas Fire Rescue. Happened about 3:15 this afternoon at Abrams Road near Royal Lane in the Lake Highlands area. Two cars collided. The McLaren sports car is the one that split in two. It hit a tree. Crews say they could not reach the two people inside, so a heavy rescue response was dispatched. The two people died. One person in the other vehicle had to be taken to the hospital. It's unknown that person's injuries. Officials have not given details on what exactly led to that crash.
Real quick story, and we always hear
Burt's
at
Bees
the
is
Car
so
Concierge
satisfying.
Show, we always talk about, vehicles and safety and all of those type of things. And, when it comes to sports cars and things of that nature, the things that go really fast, with big engines and, fine lines, as it were, you kind of take a little of a chance when you drive these vehicles, specifically if you drive them a certain way, and definitely specifically if you're a drinker and you drive a certain way. Now, these vehicles are built for speed, and technically, the way the corporate system or the law system is, you're not supposed to drive fast in them like they're meant to be driven. So it's one of those situations where, my question, of course, is, how did a car get cleaved in half? That's my first question. These cars are not supposed to be that way. They're supposed to be extremely safe. Of course, McLaren, so sports vehicle designed to be fast but not to be safe. So it's par for the course, if you're buying a vehicle that is designed that way, if you're using it that way, that you're going to run into situations where this can happen. But cut in half, that baffles me. I don't see any. It had to be some seriously crazy driving going on for that vehicle to be cut in half. How could that happen? What prompted the vehicle to be cut in half? It's just a really kind of a weird story for me. I just don't understand, with the advent of safety in our vehicles and the advent of making sure that people who are on our roads are safe no matter what kind of vehicle you're driving. It just, it's just a baffling situation to hear the story of a car being cut in half. It's kind of like the Tesla Cybertruck story that I brought last week when it caught on fire. We want to establish how these things happen. We want to establish how it caught on fire. We want to establish how this vehicle got cleaved in half. The ultimate goal in the automotive industry is to make sure that the people who are driving these cars are safe. You don't want explosions, you don't want cleaving, you don't want fires. You want to do everything in your power to make these vehicles safe. That's why there's so much ADAS in these vehicles, so much, the blind spot monitoring, the lane watch, the brake assist. All these things are designed to make sure that things like this, people dying in car accidents, is to prevent that. And of course, we continue to innovate, continue to find new ways to make our cars safe, but of course we continue to have accidents. And mainly these accidents are, man-made, driver error, as it were. It's not about the car, but, we are doing our best to design these cars so that you just don't have these problems in the future. And of course, with us being humans and doing, whatever you want and driving however you want, it's going to continue to have, accidents and problems, but we'll continue to advance the technology to try to prevent these. But for us to do that, we really have to continue to try to find out how these things are happening, because cars getting cut in half is just crazy stuff, crazy stuff. So, moving along, we're going to check out a story about the Volkswagen Dieselgate. Now, I've talked about this several times, the Volkswagen, where Volkswagen was caught putting devices in their vehicles, their diesel vehicles, to lie about the miles per gallon. That's pretty much all it was. And it was a big thing. They called it Dieselgate. Volkswagen had to come out of pocket with a recall that was pretty much just paying customers back for technically money they lost because the miles per gallon said a certain thing, but it was never that way. You know, the cars are just pretty much lying to the customer about the miles per gallon that they're getting. And of course, they're lying about the miles per gallon when the vehicles were being sold, on the Mopar sheets and everything like that. So let's check that out real quick. This is going to be a reader, so let me go ahead, take a deep breath, and read y'all this story. Alright, so it's from Yahoo News. It's a government investigation uncovers disturbing truth about almost 50 different car models. We should be putting public health first. And this is from Alex McDonald, and this is from Tuesday, December 10th, so yesterday. It's been almost a decade since the infamous Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal broke, but it turns out the issue runs deeper than anyone realized. A fresh investigation into the United Kingdom has revealed that 47 diesel models from 11 manufacturers might also be rigged with defective devices, software designed to cheat emission tests, the Times reported. If true, this could lead to massive recalls and lawsuits for car makers who misled the public about their environmental impact. The UK Department for Transport has started looking into a number of diesel cars made between 2009 and 2019, following suspicions that they were equipped with devices that allowed them to pass emissions tests while polluting much more in real-world conditions. The investigation, which began after environmental group Client Earth raised concerns, could uncover anywhere from 2 million to 6 million cars in the UK alone that are still on the roads with these devices. The first phase of the probe is focused on 47 models, but experts believe the real number could be much higher. If the DFT confirms these suspicions, manufacturers could face massive costs, from recalls to compensation claims from affected customers. Volkswagen, which was the first company exposed for this issue, has already paid €193 million compensation to UK drivers in 2022, $245 million today, but other companies may soon be facing similar consequences. Why is regulating car emissions important? This isn't just about misleading customers, it's about public health. The defeat devices let diesel cars emit harmful levels of nitrogen dioxide and other toxic gases, contributing to dangerous air pollution that is linked to respiratory illnesses, heart disease, and premature deaths. In the UK, air pollution is responsible for tens of thousands of deaths each year. This is an invisible killer that's shortening people's lives and reducing their quality of life. Consumers and the public have been let down by previous governments, said Emily Cursey, a lawyer at Client Earth. The devices may have made the cars perform better in tests, but they also kept critical pollutants from being properly regulated, which is a big setback for efforts to clean up air quality. With governments pushing for cleaner, greener alternatives, the continued use of these devices undermines those efforts. It also a wake-up call for tighter regulations and better accountability in the auto industry. What's being done about it? The DFT is moving forward with its investigation and, if necessary, will require car makers to fix their vehicles, the Times reported. However, the UK government currently lacks the legal power to force manufacturers to carry out the recalls, although new laws introduced in the Environment Act of 2021 could change that. Environmental groups are urging the government to act quickly and not let car makers limit the scope of the investigation to protect their profits. Do you feel like they're blah, blah, blah? This is a very clear example of a case where we should be putting public health first and being tough on the car industry. It's horrifying that we're still talking about this a decade after these abuses began to be identified, said Rory Stewart, a former Tory minister who wrote about government pushback on using Dieselgate penalties for cleaner air. If you drive a diesel car from the affected years, it might be worth keeping an eye on these investigations, especially since recalls and compensation could be on the horizon. And if you're in the market for a car, now's a great time to look into more eco-friendly options. All right. So, all right, my friends, and we kind of knew what was going on when we was talking about the Dieselgate a while back, and it was just one of those things where you know it was a big boom for diesel vehicles for a long time. People were really thinking that diesel vehicles were going to help them save money, were going to be better for them. And what really came out of it is that diesel vehicles are not what it is, okay? You have to deal with, buying diesel gas, which is you still buying gas just like any other regular gas. But then you got to buy that DEFCON fluid to put in your vehicle to clean out the system. You got to decarburate the DEFCON filters. It's just a lot more money. It ended up being a situation where when people are buying these diesel vehicles, they're just spending more money because it's more that they need. If you're using a diesel vehicle, using diesel gas, you have to use a diesel filter, and you have to have diesel fluid. There's a DEF fluid that you need to put in your vehicle to try to limit the contamination, as it were. It mixes with the diesel fluid, helps the car run, all these kind of things. But we just found that not only did we find that these diesel vehicles are just more expensive and causing more problems, the companies that were making them were doing the exact same thing, because they understood in the beginning that a diesel vehicle is going to emit a lot more, problems for the atmosphere, a lot of more, diesel vehicles just emit a lot of pollution. That's just the way it is. It's the reason they have that DEF fluid in the system, and the reason that they created these devices. They almost had to, because they understood that when they create these diesel vehicles, they understood that they were going to be polluting the environment, and that there was already things in place that said that the pollution was going to be bad, and it was going to stop these cars from being sold. So they had to do it. They had to come up with these devices because they couldn't figure out a way to make the diesel engine vehicles run and still meet all the environmental regulations that they were supposed to meet. It was an uphill battle from the beginning for these people who were making these diesel vehicles. And Volkswagen technically is just the first company to get caught doing it, because like this article was saying, there's several companies that are having diesel vehicles and using these devices to defeat eco regulations. And they just do it so they can sell the cars. They just want to make sure they keep on selling their cars, and if their cars are not meeting the regulations to be on the streets, then of course their vehicles are not supposed to be on the streets. So it's a different situation for the UK, of course. It doesn't seem like they have the regulations in place that's going to stop, these companies from putting these devices in their cars. We definitely do have those here. So we know that any American companies that are in this diesel situation and creating these devices in their diesel vehicles, the world's going to come down hard on them. They're going to come down super hard on them. They're going to come down to the point where they're going to make them pay these customers money back. They're going to try to figure out some, recall to remove the device or change the system. And then a lot of people are just going to have to get their cars bought back, because those cars are not meeting regulations to be on the roads here in the U.S. So it's going to be a massive deal. This story is a massive deal. And when it comes out, what vehicles are under this umbrella and are having these devices, it's going to be horrible recalls, and it's going to really hurt some U.S. automakers because of all the money that they're going to have to spend out to shell out to take care of the recalls and all the problems that these vehicles, these diesel vehicles have been on the road for a long time. There's so many diesel trucks with Dodge, so many Chevy diesel trucks. There's a lot of diesel vehicles on the road. And they've already said that they found out about 47. And dollars and donuts, there's going to be a decent amount of those vehicles that are made here in the U.S. So this is not a great story for the U.S. automakers. If once it is well known, it's just going to be a financial burden that the U.S. automakers can't handle right now. It is what it is. All right, my friends. So, last but not least, we're going to jump into some General Motors, okay? Now, General Motors have been making a lot of good moves. We've always praised Mary Barra. She's been doing good. They got some situations where there's a case where they're saying they're extorting Michigan about tearing down the GM building, all these other great stories. There's a lot of stuff going on with GM. But the one thing that we know about GM is that just like all the other automakers, they're really trying to get that push into EVs and really trying to get that push into autonomous robo vehicles. So GM is one of those that whipped out with the Robotaxi at the GM Cruise Robotaxi, and it's been having some problems. So first we're going to check out a video about why there's a recall on these vehicles and what happened to cause it. Check it out.
Cruise is recalling its driverless robo-taxis as it faces an uphill battle to regain public trust. Thanks for being here for Midday Live. I'm Julian Glover.
And I'm Kristen Z. General Motors, which owns Cruise, says the recall comes after a crash that involved a Cruise car dragging a pedestrian in San Francisco in October.
ABC 7 News reporter Lena Howland is live at the newsroom with the story. And Lena, we could still see some of these Cruise cars out on the road.
Yeah, that's right. Julian. Cruise says with this recall, they'll be installing a software update in all of their cars that should better guide the cars to come to a complete stop in the event of a crash. That's instead of automatically pulling the car over despite the situation.
Cruise is taking steps to get its robo-taxis back on the road after California's DMV forced the company to pause driverless rides in October.
I would say that Cruise has lost all public trust, and they need to start over again.
Cruise is now issuing a voluntary recall of its vehicles for a software update, nearly 5 weeks after a person was first thrown in front of a Cruise vehicle during a hit-and-run crash and dragged 20 feet by the driverless vehicle as it attempted to move out of traffic. In a statement Wednesday morning, Cruise said, in part, the recall addresses circumstances in which the collision detection subsystem may cause the AV to attempt to pull over instead of remaining stationary when a pullover is not desired. San Francisco Board of Supervisors President Aaron Peskin says it's a little late for that.
This just means that this product is absolutely not ready, and that state and federal regulators have not done their job to get in front of this. And meanwhile, you have Cruise going, these things don't drive drunk. Doesn't matter if they don't drive decently.
A computer science professor at Cal State East Bay says this recall means fixing code, just like an iPhone update, except this code tells the cars how to behave without a driver, and they're trained based on data from previous experience.
We would need to see that this kind of AI system that work based on the experience is similar to the same way that like a human behave. The more experience the person has, the more the better person can react to the new scenarios.
Cruise says in addition to the recall, they're also establishing a chief safety officer position to report directly to the CEO, appointing a third-party engineering firm to conduct technical root cause analysis, retaining an outside law firm to review the company's response to the October 2nd incident. And they say they will be adopting company-wide pillars focusing on safety, transparency, and community engagement. Live in San Francisco, Lena Howland, ABC 7 News.
So, and I've said this several times, I'm not the biggest fan of these autonomous vehicles. I always talk about, there's this show, Upload, that I watched, really great show, and the main character, the way he dies is that he's in a Robotaxi and is taking it somewhere, and then somebody, competing inventor or company that's working against his company, decides to program his Robotaxi to run into another car, and he gets killed. And that is the basis on why I don't see myself driving a Robotaxi anytime soon, because my thought process is that robots are fantastic, but there's so many things that they don't prepare for, just like this situation here. I mean, how would the vehicle know if the person wasn't inside the vehicle, if they was running somebody over or something? Obviously they didn't see that person, or the cameras or computers or whatever didn't see the person that it was running over. So, I bring this story up because I really think that it is we're still we're still far away from robo taxis being a super duper thing. I know that Tesla has rolled out with its robo taxi situation, and a lot of companies are trying their best to jump into the robo taxi situation because they see that it's lucrative. They know that it's coming. They know that it's going to be a part of the world really, really soon. So they're trying their best to get their foot in there first. But of course, just like anything, once you do that, you're going to be the first person to have the problems. You're going to be the first person to deal with the issues that these things are going to have because, of course, research and development is not in high demand anymore like it was. So we just don't know what's going to happen, and you have to learn what's going to happen in real time. So real quick, we're gonna stick with this story, but we're gonna read what's happening with the Robotaxi situation right now. All right, so this is gonna be from Yahoo Finance. GM abandons Robotaxi operations derailed by accident, and this is from yesterday, December 10th. U.S. auto giant General Motors announced Tuesday it will abandon its Robotaxi development efforts after a highly publicized incident last year stymied its progress in the autonomous vehicle field. The Detroit-based manufacturer plans to merge the Cruise Robotaxi vehicle unit with GM's technical teams to concentrate on developing advanced driver assistance systems for personal vehicles, the statement said. The company said it abandoned the Cruise project given the considerable time and resources that would be needed to scale the business along with the increasingly competitive Robotaxi market. It marks a major turnaround for GM, which bought the Cruise startup in 2016 and has since spent billions of dollars to make the operation viable. A Robotaxi business is not General Motors' core business, said GM CEO Mary Barra in a call with analysts. But Barra said GM's commitment to autonomous technology is unwavering. Honda, an investor in Cruise, had planned to launch a Robotaxi service in Japan in 2026, but the Japanese group would now reassess the project's future and make necessary adjustments, including potential cancellation once Cruise finalizes its restructuring, Honda's U.S. subsidiary told AFP. Did y'all know that General Motors and Honda is working together a lot? They're working together a lot. General Motors is making a couple of Honda's electric vehicles, one in particular, the Honda Prologue. The halt of operations comes a year after Cruise was forced to suspend all operations in San Francisco after one of its self-driving cars dragged a woman who had first been hit by a hit-and-run driver in the city. Cruise lost its operating permits from regulators, paused expansions into other states, and laid off 900 employees, a quarter of its workforce. Shortly before the incident, California authorities had allowed for expanded driverless taxi services in San Francisco, giving the go-ahead for Alphabet-owned Waymo and Cruise. Cruise's exit confirms Waymo as the dominant player in the business, which was valued at $45 billion after a fundraising round in October, according to Bloomberg. The company has been expanding its reach and currently runs Robotaxi fleets in San Francisco, Phoenix, and Los Angeles. I don't be getting them motherfuckers. And in a team up with Uber, the company is planning to offer Waymo Robotaxi rides in Atlanta and Austin. Amazon's Zoox, meanwhile, is conducting Robotaxi testing in California and Las Vegas, while Elon Musk recently unveiled what he said was a Robotaxi capable of self-driving, predicting it would be available by 2027. GM's strategic pivot comes as embattled automakers worldwide face mounting pressures to balance investments in emerging technologies with near-term profitability. The auto giant said that the restructuring is expected to generate annual savings exceeding $1 billion once completed in the first half of 2025. GM's share price was up by more than 3% in after hours trading on Wall Street. All right, so they're getting away from it. They realized that they stuck their foot in way too quickly. They invested way too much money and it went to waste because their Robotaxi situation is not ready. And this story tells me that Elon Musk and Tesla have the right idea. They brought theirs out here as 2025 or 2024 rather, and they're not going to really say theirs going to be available till 2027. 3 years of research and development. 3 years. That's good stuff. That's good numbers. That's what you want to do, especially for stuff like this. This is new stuff. This is dangerous stuff because we're talking about systems driving cars. Cars can be missiles, can be so destructive. We've talked about this several times, and the need for the research and development on these things is paramount. It is extremely paramount that you spend as much time as possible doing research and development with these type of things. Otherwise, you're going to get into a situation where these cars are going to be running people over, running into things, all of these things that cause harm. We still haven't really established how some of these electric vehicles are catching on fire. From water. Water is causing these electric vehicles to catch fire. And it's just one of the many things that we just don't know. We just don't have the information, the knowledge to be able to put these vehicles on our roads and feel safe about it. Now they're saying they've got these Zoom X or whatever. They have a couple up in San Francisco, and I pray that they're doing well. It's not something I'm going to do anytime soon because I still have that fear. I've seen that movie Upload. I know people die. This young lady died. People die in car accidents all the time. This is not unusual. This is not new. But if you're dying because of a new technology, of something new, then that's where I give pause. Because the idea is that you don't want anybody to die. And if you do enough research and development, you spend enough time with these vehicles, you kind of get an idea of what's going to happen. Now, mind you, I always say that the first year a vehicle comes out, no matter what happens, you're getting to a situation where the consumer is going to be the first person driving these vehicles when it comes out. So when that consumer drives a vehicle, you always find it's going to be different. You always find different problems that consumers see, different problems that consumers complain about. So that's how most recalls come about the first year a vehicle was made. But when it comes to these situations and these vehicles that you're not being led by the human mind, and you're being led by ones and zeros, you get into a little bit of a more need for the research and development, because you don't want Skynet taking over. Let's just put it that way. You don't want Skynet taking these cars over and just running people over. That's where we're leading down to. All right, guys, I'm going to go and get up out of here. It's always good to put on my show. Please like, share, subscribe. Hit me in the DMs if there's anything you would like me to talk about. Please cash at me if you can. Support the show. And I'm out of here. Peace.